So good afternoon, and thank you for joining us for this policy committee meeting. This meeting is being recorded. The documents which will be discussed here today are available on the event calendar on our website, which is wc.wa.gov. They are also available in the handout section of the webinar. I am Amelia Boyd, and I am the program manager for the Medical Commission. I, along with Jimmy Bush, are the organizers for this meeting. Dr. Karen Domino is the chair for the policy committee. Once the presentation is finished, Dr. Domino will open the floor for committee and public discussion. I'm not used to doing this with two screens. Here we go. Oh. As this is a hybrid meeting, we do have virtual participants who are joining us via GoToWebinar. For those of you who are here in person, please state your name before speaking and speak toward the middle of the room where the speaker is located, where the microphone is located. Please do not have sidebar conversations. As for our virtual participants, panelists, please make sure your line is muted if you are not speaking. If you would like to ask a question or speak, for attendees, please use the raise your hand function or the question section. And please note that anything posted to the chat or questions section is considered public record. And with that, I will hand it over to Dr. Domino.
Hello, everyone. I'm Karen Domino, and I'm chair of this committee. We have hopefully looked at the newer meeting packet because it contains two other documents. And we're first going to start with the document called Discrimination in Healthcare. This is one which we had previously approved, and it is a policy, and it went to the Secretary's office. Mike Farrell, would you like to please discuss what the Secretary said and also your recommendations?
Sure. When you adopt a policy, as Dr. Domino said, it has to go through secretary review. That's by statute. It comes back sometimes with feedback. This one did, and so this document was emailed out yesterday. Everybody got it. Okay, it's not in the packet. It's up there. Secretary's office had a recommendation. I thought the document was pretty good. Thought that it should begin with, they have a format for policies, and they like to begin with a very succinct statement as to what the policy is, so that somebody reading it doesn't have to keep reading and go down to the end to figure out exactly what the policy is in a couple of sentences. So this is their recommendation to begin with that first paragraph there.
I think the first paragraph that they recommended is fine, all the votes. I think the recommended change there is fine.
And I'll get to another change that I suggested, but that's there. And that's an accurate, I believe, an accurate statement of what you're really trying to say.
Yeah.
The rest is an explanation.
Does everyone agree about that? Anyone have any comments about it other than it seems fine? Claire?
Very muted.
She's muted, yeah.
I don't hear you, Claire.
My screen doesn't show anything I can actually read right now. It's just a big corner of the Washington Medical. Were you meaning for us to have something readable up there?
Yeah, there is something on the screen of which your pictures look right now block what we have.
Dr. Trescott, it was emailed to you yesterday afternoon.
By Mike Farrell.
Yeah,
I can send
okay.
it to you.
I'm not sure why my window doesn't work.
Now?
No, I'm fixing it. It's me.
Yeah, I'd like to be able to follow along with you guys. I did read the policy in the past. Something's coming on there, readable. There's a readable. Thank you. I don't know what you did, Amelia, but it's like magic.
Well, you guys, now we can't.
I'm working on it.
Oh, really? Now no one else can?
This is our first time for high.
You know, this came up at CMT recently that a complainant was complaining about discrimination, and we got into a discussion about it. And I'm hoping that this gives some clarity on those cases and some consistency. But it seemed kind of more gray than black and white when I saw it.
Well, I think, Claire, we had previously approved the document, the commission had, and then the secretary added this first paragraph, which now we can see. Can you still see that? It
Yeah,
just gives an introduction, a summary of what there is below in case one does not wish to read it and go through and find out exactly. Paula and I were just chatting that it is hard with these cases to know exactly how they deal with it, but I thought this document does provide some basis and definitions for one to be able to consider in this. The other thing further down, you can go down to the blue, and that Mike Farrell had added in some additional information there that pretty much summarizes a lot of these descriptions that we had seen in that earlier section. And that's in blue.
I also think that that sort of summarizes the science very succinctly.
What I was trying to do was, we have some key terms of that. And some of the terms that we were defining were not in the document, which just bothers me because I'm old school. And so I thought, and that's when it occurred to me that these key terms, these key concepts weren't fleshed out. But there was a little bit of a gap in my view, that we're talking about discrimination is bad, and then we're talking about the effects of it. We're not talking about what it is. So I thought just a little bit in there about what it is, what we're talking about. When we say it takes many forms, here are the forms it takes. That's nothing elaborate in there, but it incorporates those key terms that people can look up and see what is explicit bias, or what is a microaggression.
I think it's well written. Thank you, and I like it.
I also agree. I can say Dr. Curry thought it was redundant to the terms above that are listed there, but I don't feel it's excessively long, and it summarizes and pulls things together. I agree. I liked it myself.
you know, one of the things that came up was this patient complaining of a prolonged wait time.
Claire, be careful not to talk about an open case.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to say there was an example of a type of behavior that may not be noticed, but could imply bias.
It's Chris. I agree with the changes that were made. I think it looks great as it is. I would move to approve it with the changes that are so posted.
Second.
Any
I
other
can agree with
discussion?
that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone
Aye.
opposed? Okay. Thank you.
My question was just, I think I heard you say microaggression and that said macro, I just didn't know.
Yeah, they are gonna change that.
Okay.
It can be,
Okay.
Yeah, that's his typo.
Oh, okay.
Those are just bigger aggressions.
There's little big ones.
Subtle things. Yeah, okay, yeah.
Okay. Next item deals with a new policy relating to informed consent and shared decision-making. This is the first time we will have seen it, and Mike, would you like to, or anyone, I don't know who is involved in this, would like to just talk about it a little bit?
Sure, this is the product of a work group consisting of Dr. Roberts, Dr. Yu, and Mr. Malden. Got that right? Okay. We met a couple times and came up with this document. We're not asking you to approve it or recommend approval for the full commission, because this is a first look at it. It's kind of a tricky subject. And so we're introducing it today for feedback and tomorrow for feedback from the commission. And then maybe we'll bring it back the next meeting for approval. So we're happy to take any suggestions on this. If there's something out that should be included, or we've included something that you're not comfortable with, please let us know.
Does anyone have any comments or suggestions about it? I did a very quick look through. I thought it was like a great document. I'll look at it further myself.
Yes.
Anyone at home have any comments?
I glanced at it too. Sorry, Karen, it's Chris. I glanced at it as well, and I want to read it a little bit more before tomorrow, but I thought it was a well-written policy statement.
Claire, were you able to see this? It came through in the new packet, which was a few days ago. Can you unmute yourself, please?
I did get a chance to look at it and thought it looked good.
I have a question. Because you brought the discrimination policy back because the secretary has a format. Does this comply with that format, or do you need a little blurb at the beginning?
Oh, that's a great point, because yeah, we probably do.
Because I don't want to go through that whole loop again. I know, but maybe it won't come bouncing back. That's what I was thinking.
Okay, well, I think everyone should just look at it further and make some suggestions. Mike, would you like them to go to you or to you and the work group?
You can send it to me and I'll forward it to the right people. Before the next meeting, when we incorporate the changes, I'll address that issue, not only about putting in a succinct statement at the beginning.
I'm assuming you need a reference. That's what they did before. There's no reference, like they put a RCW. Do you need a reference? I mean, an RCW in the references?
If we reference one, we do. So
Okay.
So this is a complex issue, and there is no way to cover every circumstance. So recognize that as you're reading it. Look to see ways that we can improve it, but there is no way to make this be a perfect document. We need to do the best we can. What?
It's been about 3-4 hours.
We
Making it perfect.
We spent a long time on it. It's a very complex issue,
And it's important.
and it's important.
Okay. All right, we'll move on to our next document. The guidance document, medical professionalism. This is what, 4-year review with some updates, Mike?
yes, so this is an existing policy or guidance document. Oh, by the way, we are changing the name, or proposing to change the name of guidelines to guidance document. Because many of you think that guidelines is not an appropriate title for these recommendations to licensees because it's too close to clinical guidelines, which is a completely different animal. So I'm proposing we call it guidance document, just to make a subtle change that commission's not issuing clinical guidelines. This was taken 4 years ago from almost verbatim from the Annals of Internal Medicine that issued this very nicely written document on medical professionalism that one of the commission members thought would be great for the commission to adopt. For your review, I had a few changes to recommend, and I had Pam Kohlmeyer, who's sitting right here, take a look at it, and the rest of the changes are hers, and I thought she did a wonderful job with just making this sound a little better. So these changes are largely hers, and if you could take a look at that and let me know if you have any issues with it. I think it's a much better document.
I like the document a lot, the way it is around the time. With the updates that you guys have provided, and we appreciate the work that went into it. The changes basically relatively minor in that they don't change the intent, and I would move that we bring this forward.
And I just realized that I had an email from Dr. Yanling Yu. I don't know if she's on. Is she on?
No.
Okay. She says, first paragraph on page 4 under commitment to scientific knowledge. If you could go up to that, actually, I think you're pretty close to it.
First paragraph of page 4, is it?
Yes. Okay, just scroll down a little bit more. It's right there. Okay, so she makes a good point that's very relevant today. She says this is the right place to emphasize the importance of evidence-based practice and to keep up with advances in medicine and technology. To me, this is one of the critical responsibilities for practitioners to commit to their patients, scientific knowledge and professionalism.
I agree. Where are you going to put that?
I hadn't thought about that, but I think that's an important concept to squeeze in there somewhere. I can think about that tonight.
Yeah, because it
Put
is,
something
it
in.
is sort of commitment to scientific knowledge,
Yeah.
because that knowledge changes very frequently. So one always needs to keep updating. And if there is evidence, practice. Yeah.
Okay, it comes pretty close to it as it is.
I thought it comes pretty close. It doesn't use the word evidence-based medicine exclusively. So whether one wants to put that in.
You could put it in the first line. You could say much of medicine's contract with societies based on integrity and the appropriate use of scientific knowledge, technology, and evidence
Yeah,
based.
that would fit. That would really cover it, I think.
Okay, I will add that.
Any of you guys at home, work, have any comments about that addition?
No, I think it's a great addition.
I think it's fine.
Right, so do we need another motion to now accept it with this? Yeah.
I would move to accept it.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Say aye or raise your
Aye.
hand. Anyone opposed? Okay, we'll bring this forward. Mike, will you send this out to commissioners overnight? Yeah. All right. The next document is guidance document, practitioner confidence. This is another 4-year update with some changes.
Yes, this is another document that an existing policy, guidance document, excuse me, that they made some changes. And I had Pam, who's become my
Trusty wingman.
I was trying to think of the right term. Had some, let's set fresh eyes on this. And as you know, she's a physician and an attorney, and she has some great changes she's suggesting. That is the document in your packet and up on the screen.
You know, Dr. Bundy has had a chance to look. Like
Yeah.
He looked it over when we first did it.
Okay.
These are good changes.
Just as context, this really came out of some meetings we attended with some industry groups like CPE and others, looking at how do you address confidence. So if you go to another country, say Britain, Australia, or whatever, they actually have programs where they see you in between when you get licensed and when there maybe is a point at this point, and they assess your practice at that point. Our neighbors, British Columbia, actually have a peer-led program that does that every 6 to 8 years. We knew that we weren't going to be able to have that kind of a program stood up. And so the intent was to have a self-directed, at least awareness guidance. You know, you should be checking in on yourself and your own skills to know what your baseline is and to understand that you may have a decline and be aware of it. Not so much that you should take yourself out of practice, but just be aware how you might need to alter your practice to accommodate whatever may be happening.
I know we talked about this the last time we looked at it. I always thought our timeframes for recommended health evaluation.
You know,
For instance, I thought the first category, 25 to 54, should be 5 to 7. And the next category, 2 to 5. 2 after 65 was paid every year. I think last time I got a shot down. I'll bring it up again. Keep trying. Anyway, I just think that they are.
I just
these
don't
are
know what a health
recommended.
evaluation is. I mean, is that going to see a physician where you have a primary care, where you have evaluation, or is it IQ, I mean, a testing? What is that?
So in your assessment framework, the second sentence describes what a health evaluation could be. Or, I'm sorry, third sentence. So such these health evaluations should include physical dexterity, cognitive, mental, and substance use components. Obviously, these are all suggestions and may not all apply to your situation.
So, who does one see to get this evaluation?
The last time we discussed this, it was either your PCP or choose someone separate. There's hesitance in doing. I will point out there's U.S. naming trend. Scripps Healthcare sends all of their practitioners yearly to PACE for their fitness to duty evaluation if they're over the age of 7. I'm being told I'm talking too soft, sorry. So yeah, that there are other models that are happening, and again, this is just a proposed framework for a practitioner to apply if they feel
Did PMA recommend?
I'm not aware of their total opinion, but we could do some
Seems
research.
to be it's recommend more frequent exams.
Well, this is the workplace fitness as opposed to a medical examination, right?
It's
Which
just,
is, yeah.
yeah, it's just.
I mean, a lot of this comes out in the workplace. People are having problems. I know a lot of the people we deal with don't have, they work independently. But in large, with so many physicians employed, PAs employed by healthcare systems, these sort of battles are part of a yearly evaluation.
Well, yeah,
I mean, they're not, in terms of your medical issues, but your cognitive, whether whether you're having issues at work, whether you're having trouble thinking. I mean, all of those things do get evaluated.
So that's a yes and no.
Yeah.
Because there are large clinics that are multi-specialty, multidisciplinary clinics, multi-specialty clinics that do not necessarily do this and there are those who do. The idea, I think, is good for it to be for guidance. Excellent. I'm not, first of all, I don't think it's named quite right because we're talking about healthcare related comments, not whether somebody ought to be practicing their total income. And somehow or other we have to, I think we should clarify. But I do think it's got, I think the way it's written, what it has in it, has a lot of value to it. And it has a lot of value to it for the young practitioners that are just going out of practice, as well as those who are old. Because a baseline would be really helpful if you're trying to decide how much longer I want to practice.
Baseline for milestones in practice.
Yeah.
Not necessarily age-based. How do you feel today?
Yeah. But it suggests that you should reassess yourself, which I think is really important. It's hard to reassess if you have one, if all you have is the same time. So if I wait until I'm 70 before I do anything. I don't have
Alden,
any-
I'm having trouble hearing you.
So I was, because I'm looking at John. I think the reason I like this as much as I do is because it starts out when you start out practice. Because if you wait until you're my age before you do your first assessment, you've got nothing to compare it to. So I don't know whether I'm deteriorating or not. All I know is how am I in this particular time frame. And I think a lot of physicians, if we had the information, would use that to help determine, as one help in determining when we want to stop practice.
I wonder how many, everyone's moving into a group or an institution. I wonder if it becomes kind of an HR competency or healthcare issue for docs and institutions.
But a lot of it, having been in an institution role, many institutions, if not most, don't have a mechanism for dealing with this. It's hard.
That's right. I agree with you, Alden. It's hard to mandate anything like this up. It's very difficult because you get into exactly. You get into discrimination and ADA and all of those things when you try to mandate this in a facility. So a lot of times we find it out when it either comes to light through another practitioner, nursing, somebody, that we stop and help and assess that provider. We just had it was Doctor's Day where we were kind of gathering and handing out things for the docs, and they were talking and they said the worst patient in the world is a physician because they'll walk into work with an IV in their arm to treat their patients and feel like they're okay. So I like this as a guideline and a framework for providers. I would love to give something out like this to our medical staff when it gets approved. I think it's great, but it is really hard to mandate taking care of yourself, basically.
Yeah, I agree. I think, thinking about my past employment, I don't recall there being any guidelines or anything else. The only guideline was somebody recognized somebody's having the issue.
It's right.
That's too late.
Yeah, it is. Usually it is. We've had a few practitioners that have come forward and admitting to needing some self-help and taking themselves out of practice, which we applauded, but that doesn't happen very often.
You know, when we were at the FSMB meeting, we heard about some online tools to test over time that you could use it, and they were set up so people could choose to do them on themselves. It was a self-test to look at your skills. And it might be nice to have that kind of access to those tools as part of the guidance.
Yeah, I agree. We have gone back and forth with putting together a policy, even with Horty Springer, the legal firm that we use. And it just always it's never materialized, because it's really difficult to tell someone you have to do this.
Yeah.
I do wish we would like to see if there's some mechanism for changing the name to something like practitioner health related competence.
I agree.
Because there is, but yeah, because there is incompetence that is totally not related to health.
Yeah. And Dr. Bundy did review this.
4 years ago. He
4 years
He did,
ago.
but I did not send it to him this time. We don't have to, so you can defer this.
Yeah, no, we're
For working on
trying
the
to get
language
language.
and then having Dr. Bundy's thoughts as well. And having the rest of the commission members mull it over. We thought, at least I thought when it was adopted, there might be some controversy here, why this is kind of a baby step toward what Canada is doing, but I don't think we've had any comments or feedback on this in the last 4 years.
Yeah, most of the debate really came around because I think we put it forward as a policy first. And there was a lot of concern about having it be stronger than a guidance document for a number of reasons. At that time, the Scripps healthcare mandate of anybody over 70 had just happened. And maybe that's something we can do, is we can reach out to PACE in San Diego and see if they connect us with someone and talk about that and the effects that it's had. I mean, I think you all know that that's not without its precedent in other industries. FBI, airline pilots, they all have similar requirements of getting physicals and that sort of thing. So there may be some additional information we can get there.
Any other comments? So Mike will show this tomorrow and open it up for discussion.
Yeah,
of the
there
group.
is.
Okay. That is it, right? What we
That's
have on
it.
our agenda. Anyone have any other thing they want to discuss? Is there any public people joining us today?
There are some, but no question.
We can adjourn.
Sounds good.
Great.
Thank you.
This is good. It's been a long day.
Feel better, Claire.
Bye, Jim.
Thanks. Will do.
Take care.
Okay.
This is a long one.